The Pacific ACP region comprises 14 small island states with a combined exclusive economic zone of approximately 20 million square kilometers, roughly twice the size of the European continent. Though they are small in landmass, Pacific ACP countries are essentially large ocean states. Each year, approximately 2.5 million metric tons of fish is caught in Pacific ACP waters and valued at over $3 billion.
The Pacific ACP states have been getting less than 5% of this value. Many Pacific ACP states are rich in fisheries resources, but lack the capacity to fish in their own waters. And this is the main reason why most of the fish in the PACP waters are caught by distant water fishing nations and supplied to fishing plants in foreign countries with very little benefit for the Pacific ACP states other than license fee. This has got to change.
A partnership in the fisheries sector between two Pacific ACP states, Kiribati and Fiji, demonstrates how regional integration has led to the development of local industries that are creating employment opportunities, improving infrastructure, increasing the transfer of technology and skills, and increasing exports. Global sourcing could enhance this partnership and deliver on the development benefits of the interim EPA and the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement currently under negotiation between the European Union and the Pacific ACP states. Kiribati is a small island state with a total land area of just 280 square kilometers, less than a fifth the size of Greater London. Living on such a small land area, the Kiribati population of just over 100,000 face a lack of basic infrastructure, constant shortages of water, expensive electricity, natural disasters, and the impact of climate change, which threatens the very existence of the Kiribati people and their low-lying islands and atolls. The devastating impact of climate change was also witnessed by the United Nations Secretary General in his visit to Kiribati in September 2011.
The highest point on any of the atolls that make up the nation of Kiribati is just a few meters above sea level.
Kiribati is the front of the front lines when it comes to climate change. I have seen for myself a real threat is impacting people. People are afraid of their own future.
Kiribati has the 12th largest exclusive economic zone in the world. Fish caught in the Kiribati EEZ exceeds 300,000 metric tons per year.
Fisheries has always been a resource that we had wanted to develop. It always had the potential to be developed, but the problem has been on the way forward.
Kiribati has no capacity to fish its own EEZ and receives approximately 5% of its own multi-million-dollar industry in the form of fishing license fees from foreign vessels fishing in its exclusive economic zone.
Annually, we, as a government, we get something like $30 to $40 million from licensing. And so that is a very small component of what we could actually earn, because the total value of the fish caught in our waters is somewhere more like $500 million. And certainly we don't get anything like that.
The fish caught by these foreign fishing vessels cannot be landed in Kiribati and exported duty-free to the EU under the everything but arms arrangement that is available to the least developed countries, such as Kiribati, because of stringent EU rules of origin. Hence, most of the catch is supplied to Asian processors. Under existing EU rules of origin, for fish to be considered originating as a product of Kiribati and exported duty-free to the EU under a preferential trade agreement, it must be caught by vessels that are at least 50% owned by Kiribati or EU citizens and meet other requirements concerning registration and flag status. However, the few EU vessels that have been fishing in the Pacific range in size from 1,500 to over 3,000 gross registered tons. These massive ships, able to carry between 1,000 to 2,000 metric tons of fish per trip, do not land their catch in the Pacific. Kiribati, as well as other small Pacific ACP states, have very limited capacity to invest in large Persenas and longline vessels, and hence do not have qualifying vessels that meet EU ownership criteria. Since Kiribati does not have the infrastructure to produce canned fish or cooked loins, it will not be able to utilize the derogation on global sourcing that has been granted into the interim EPA.
The EU has already granted derogation on rules of origin for canned fish and cooked loins in the interim EPA for the Pacific. However, most of the Pacific ACP states do not have the required infrastructure or economies of scale to take advantage of these rules. On the other hand, the export of fresh frozen fish fillets and steaks is an opportunity that all Pacific ACP states can, at some stage, in some shape or form, benefit from, as it is less capital intensive and has a relatively lower setup cost and can lead to immediate returns.
It's more economical for distant water fishing nations who are already in local waters to supplement the current supply of fish caught by local fishermen without significant investment in new fishing vessels. Existing measures will verify that fish is not being processed on board to ensure that the benefit will accrue to Kiribati. In 2011, a new $8.5 million processing facility began construction in Tarawa as a joint venture between the government of Kiribati, Golden Ocean Limited of Fiji, and Shanghai Deep Sea of China. With a capacity to process 5,000 tons of fish per year, the development of this new industry has already created 50 new jobs for local people, with plans to increase employment to over 200 over a period of 2 to 3 years.
In my home, I'm very happy because I have only one son, only 4 months, and I am happy to support him for the diaper, pure water, or milk. I'm very happy and also to support my family. Sometimes we have no money, and this company pays every week.
Local fishermen trained by Golden Ocean supply fresh fish to the plant, with plans to increase the supply base to more than 1,000 fishermen in 2 to 3 years.
Te pui na tikilo nuairak na kon te ka penenda wawat. Yai puokara te utanan tingi me are bubura pa yaki pesin konani ka puo te amata. Ya konani puoki dan kan narakare ke mare.
Despite the impact of climate change and the development challenges faced by Kiribati, Golden Ocean has shown a strong commitment to the people of Kiribati and is determined to succeed. Global sourcing will help Kiribati to diversify its markets by allowing exports of fresh and frozen fillets to the EU. This will help Kiribati expand its processing facility, employ more people, and result in real GDP growth for this small Pacific ACP state. Unlike Kiribati, which has a huge fisheries resource, Fiji has a much smaller fisheries resource, but it has all the necessary infrastructure. In 2007, Fiji supplied 18% of the frozen tuna fillet market in the UK and 12% of the frozen tuna fillet market in France. Like Kiribati, if granted global sourcing, Fiji has the capacity to increase its production and employment. The development of the fisheries industries in both Fiji and Kiribati will also provide benefits for the European Union. A sustainable supply of fish that meets EU quality standards provides EU countries with much needed fish and fish products, and also helps the EU meet its goal to provide assistance for developing countries that is both sustainable and economically viable. Fiji and Kiribati are working with regional and sub-regional organizations to take measures that will ensure that the fisheries resources are managed in a sustainable manner. This will ensure that they will be able to maximize the returns from their fisheries resource while ensuring that developments are sustainable.
Fiji, as a member of the Pacific Forum Fisheries Agency, has been working to implement regional fisheries management measures, including the vessel monitoring scheme, observer program, boarding and inspection exercise, surveillance operation, and other measures to combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated or IUU fishing. Additionally, Fiji is one of the leading countries practicing the region's harmonized minimum terms and conditions for the issuance of license. Fiji is also a member of the Western Central and Pacific Fisheries Commission and is working with the Commission in the sustainable management of its fisheries resources to manage highly migratory species. Fiji was one of the few members of the WCPFC found to be fully compliant in combating IUU fishing globally. Fiji also currently has IUU catch certification in place and is in the process of introducing a new legislation that will deal with management of IUU matters with particular emphasis on enforcement, and stiff penalties will be leveled against those operators that are non-compliant.
Fish caught in Pacific ACP states' waters must be processed in the Pacific and exported to other countries as value-added products. Pacific ACP states are looking at innovative ways of maximizing the benefit from their fisheries resources. And some of these measures include what the PNA put in place, the Vessel Day Scheme, or the VDS. The VDS for the PNA has led to significant increases in access revenues for their members. Other measures including minimum terms and conditions attached to fishing license that encourage foreign fishing nations to land and process fish in Pacific ACP ports. Pacific ACP will get more benefit from onshore processing rather than purely relying on license fees. There are a number of policy measures that the European Union can put in place to support the Pacific ACP states to maximize the returns of their own fisheries, to improve, say, living standards. One good example of this is the decision to grant a derogation on global sourcing for cooked loins and canned fish to the Pacific ACP states. However, Pacific ACP states want this derogation to be extended to fresh and frozen fish steaks and fillets to enable smaller countries like the Marshall Islands that may not be able to establish canneries but be able to export some of their processed fisheries products to the European Union market. The European Union should also provide technical and financial assistance to enable Pacific ACP states to establish competent authorities to combat illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing, IUU fishing, as well as comply with the EU export requirements. In that context, the EU really must visit the Pacific regularly and work closely with national, regional, and sub-regional organizations in the Pacific to address these issues. The EU should also provide a package of incentives to more or less provide and encourage their fishing industries to invest in the Pacific, to enter into joint venture agreements with the various fishing companies in the region. In this context, we invite the EU to come and invest in our region. If managed properly, the EU EPA could create a win-win situation for both the Pacific ACP states and the European Union.
The reform of the EU fisheries rules of origin will be an important instrument for improving market access for Pacific ACP states. This access will in turn assist in the continued economic development of Pacific countries like Kiribati, Fiji, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands, and also benefit other Pacific states that do not have the capacity to process canned and cooked loins.